Tonight, you're about to hear one of the strangest and most chilling Halloween stories ever told, the story of Raven S. Hollow, a quiet American town that vanished overnight in 1987. It began as a normal Halloween night, filled with laughter, trick-or-treaters, and glowing pumpkins. But by dawn, every single person was gone. No bodies, no footprints, only candy bags scattered across the streets and doors left wide open. What happened in Raven S. Hollow that night still remains one of the darkest mysteries in American folklore. Some say it was a curse. Others believe something came out when the veil between the living and the dead was thinnest. Raven S. Hollow sat at the edge of a dense forest, where fog rolled in like a living thing. The townsfolk always said the fog smelled of iron and ash on Halloween, but they still celebrated, dressing up, hosting bonfires, and telling ghost stories. That year, 17-year-old Claire Morgan, her younger brother Eli, and their friends decided to explore the old Harrington mansion at the far end of town. The mansion had been abandoned for nearly 50 years, ever since the Harrington family mysteriously disappeared during a Halloween ball in 1937. Locals believed the house was cursed. Its windows always flickered with candlelight, even though no one lived there. But teenagers being teenagers, Claire and her group thought it would be the perfect spot for a midnight dare. The night was colder than usual. Leaves rustled like whispers, and jack-o'-lanterns seemed to smirk at them from porches. "It's just an old house," Eli said, trying to sound brave. But when they reached the gate, it swung open on its own. Inside, the air was thick, suffocating, as though the mansion had been waiting. The grand hallway was lined with portraits, faces painted in oil, all with eyes that seemed to follow them. The air smelled faintly of burnt wax and something metallic. Claire clicked on her flashlight, and the beam landed on a huge mirror at the end of the hall. Written in dust, faint but legible, were the words, "Welcome back." They laughed nervously, thinking someone was playing a prank. But when Eli turned around, the front door was gone. In its place stood another hallway, lined with the same portraits, except now the faces were smiling. Claire's heart pounded. "Let's go upstairs," she whispered, though she didn't know why. Maybe it was the faint sound of music, a slow waltz echoing through the halls. They followed the sound up the staircase, each step groaning beneath their feet. The mansion seemed alive, pulsing, as if breathing around them. When they reached the ballroom, the sight froze them where they stood. The chandeliers glowed faintly, cobwebs draping them like lace. The room was filled with people, dozens of them dancing silently in Victorian attire. But their faces were pale and blurred, as if half dissolved. The music grew louder, though no instruments were visible. Claire blinked and suddenly realized the dancers weren't moving their feet. They were floating an inch above the floor. Eli whispered, "Claire, I think they can see us." One by one, the dancers stopped. Their heads turned in unison, hollow eyes glowing faintly. A woman in a blood-red gown drifted toward them. Her smile was wide, too wide. "You're late," she said in a voice that echoed from nowhere and everywhere. The masquerade never ended. Claire grabbed Eli's hand and ran, but the exit had vanished again. The wallpaper pulsed like skin, and from the walls came whispers, chanting the same phrase, "The night remembers." They darted through corridors that twisted like a maze. Rooms changed every time they opened a door. One moment, a library. The next, a nursery with toys rocking by themselves. In one room, Claire saw something that made her scream. A table filled with candy buckets, each labeled with the names of Raven's Hollow residents. The last one read, Claire Morgan. Inside, instead of candy, was a small porcelain mask, cracked and stained with red. Suddenly, Eli was gone. She heard his voice echoing faintly, "Claire, help me." She turned corners blindly, the mansion spinning into madness. In the distance, she saw a flicker, a figure dragging Eli down a hallway. It looked like her own reflection, grinning with lifeless eyes. The closer she got, the colder the air became, until her breath came out in white clouds. When she reached the end, she found herself back in front of the mirror. But this time, the reflection wasn't hers. It was the ballroom again. And she saw herself and her friends dancing among the ghosts. Then, everything went dark. The next morning, police found the Harrington mansion still standing, though colder than any building should be. No trace of Claire, Eli, or their friends was ever found. But every Halloween since, locals claim to see flickers of light in the mansion's windows and faint laughter echoing from within. Some even say, if you walk too close to the gates, you can hear the music, the same waltz that played that night. 30 years later, a paranormal investigator named Dr. Marlowe arrived in Raven's Hollow to uncover the truth. He recorded electromagnetic spikes, strange whispers, and shadow figures that followed him through the woods. But his most chilling discovery was an old camera reel in the mansion's basement. The footage showed the Halloween of 1987, the missing teens laughing and entering the mansion. But halfway through, the video flickered, their faces distorted, their eyes turned black. The last frame showed them dancing in the ballroom, surrounded by ghostly figures. And then the words appeared across the screen. The masquerade continues. Dr. Marlowe vanished the next day. His camera was found at the forest edge, still recording. The final 10 seconds captured faint singing and a woman's whisper saying, "You shouldn't have watched." To this day, Raven's Hollow remains abandoned. No one dares enter the mansion, especially on Halloween night. Locals say the fog thickens every year, and if you listen closely, you can hear faint music drifting through the woods. Some believe it's the Harringtons celebrating another Halloween ball. Others think it's the souls of those who entered and never left. But one thing is certain. If you ever hear the words, "Welcome back," whispered in the dark on Halloween night, run, because it means the mansion has chosen you next.